In this episode of the podcast, I'm talking to my close friend, Sara Strid. So Sara has been in the photography industry for over 30 years. She graduated from Parsons in New York City, went on to a job at Magnum, then to Mario Testino's agency as a representative, and then to Kodak, and now at Profoto, where she's the head of marketing. Her experience in the photography industry is absolutely incredible. She herself is an amazing photographer. And we're going to dive into kind of how the photography industry has changed and evolved over the last 30 years by going through Sara's own journey in the industry. We'll also share some insights into kind of what it is that we see today in the photography industry, what it is that we value in photographs, and kind of our own takes on the value or potential value of a photograph. Let's dive in. This is the TSS podcast. It's a place for authentic conversations to uncover the stupid, simple truths that help us succeed in business, create better relationships, and lead more fulfilling lives. Welcome to Think Stupid Simple. Welcome, my friend. We begin our episodes with me staring awkwardly down. I'm not staring. I have a candle that I'm lighting. This is our candle lighting ceremony. Sara, I am so excited to be doing this. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
I'm extremely excited.
Now I got to show you, as well as everybody else out there, my latest craze. See, do you see this?
It's a book of some sort.
It's a book. No. Okay, so I'm a fanatic about taking notes on paper. Like this is a notepad, but I have a bajillion of these notepads. I go through like 6 to 8 of them a year, and so I just have a lot of notepads. But this is called this is not sponsored in any way. I'm just excited about it. This is called the Remarkable, and it's a tablet, like a pen paper tablet. I can write your name here. This is my conversation with Sara Strid, and look, I have all of my notes. It's all blurry right now. Nope, that's all.
Yes.
Nope, there we go. See that?
I saw it. Well, I have the same thing, but I use Procreate for that.
Wait, tell me a bit more. What is this?
Procreate. It's a wonderful app that does everything for you.
I've heard this app multiple times, and I can't remember what it does.
You can draw, and you can sketch, and you can write, and you can do whatever you want. And you have all the brushes and all the colors and everything in your entire arsenal that you want to use.
You were telling me about this. Okay, you're going to tell me about this as we get into your story. Ooh. You have been in the photography industry, my friend, for how long?
I started venturing into photography 30 years ago.
30 years ago. What does that mean, like venturing in? Walk me through this.
So I had my mind set on a completely different career when I was 15.
Okay.
And that was to become a cartoonist for Disney.
Oh.
Yes.
You know, I wanted to do the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was
Maybe you're
horrible.
better
My
than
teacher. No. My teacher told me that this is not for you. Like it was, nope, this is not it.
Looking at my daughter drawing today, I realized I couldn't stand a chance. But anyways, so I realized around 15 that I probably was not good enough for this. So I had this teacher in high school that got me into photography. And there was a dark room in the school that no one used. And he showed me everything about it. And I started taking pictures. And then after high school, I decided to go to the US to study photography. And that's how it started.
I didn't realize you studied formally. Where did you go to school?
So first I went to, right after high school, I can't believe my parents sent me off to the States at 19, you know. But first I went to a school in Boston called New England School of Photography.
Oh.
And a couple of years into that, I got a scholarship with Parsons School of Design.
Ah.
And I moved to New York City, and that's where I finished. And then I stayed there a while to work.
NESUP. Is that the name that they use?
Yeah.
Do they really?
Yes, they do. Or NESOP, maybe.
NESOP.
MISA.
You,
But it doesn't exist anymore, I believe. I'm not so sure if it's
well,
still there.
I was going to say, you, my friend, are a dying breed. There's not a lot of people that have gone through like traditional photography schooling. I personally think that university schooling in general is a dying breed.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, it
Well,
feels like,
I think it depends where you are in the world. Here, where I'm currently in Sweden, it's free education. So
oh,
everyone is extremely well educated.
it's not
So,
going to be dying if it's a free education. That's for sure. If it's free to go to, I would go back and take more classes right now.
right. Hmm.
I so wait, is it built into just a tiny, tiny side tangent? So in Sweden, is it built into the taxes? Like how is schooling paid for? It's all part of.
It's part of taxes. Yes.
And
Like healthcare.
can I ask, like healthcare as well?
Mm.
We have a lot of things right here in the States. We also have many, many things quite backwards. But how much are your taxes as a percentage of income?
So it depends on how much you make, but in
Hmm.
general, 33%. And if you're above a certain level, it's whatever is above that is 50%.
You have to be joking me. So basically, we're paying the same amount of taxes,
Yes,
but
we are.
especially in California.
No, but also in Jersey. I spent 6 years in Jersey the last few years, and the amount of money I pay in taxes there compared to what I get, I have, let's say I make, hypothetically, let's say I would make twice as much in the US as
Yeah,
I would make in Sweden. I would still have more money at the end of the day in Sweden than I would have in Jersey at the end of the
that's
month.
wild to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, I mean, I don't think that this is just people in the States. I think we just have a very nearsighted view. So when we look at taxes, we look at it as a specific number. And so long as that number is low, then we're happy to pay it without thinking of the fact that, like, well, once you add in healthcare and once you add in all these other factors, schooling, everything else, you're paying dramatically more. Anyway, going back to, okay, so you graduate from NESUP, the New England School of Photography.
Yeah, I went there for a couple of years and then I moved to Parsons in New York.
Parsons in
And
New
I,
York.
yes. And then I took my bachelor there in
Oh, got it.
photography.
Got it.
And then I stayed there for like a year to work.
Ah. So coming out with a bachelor's degree in photography, did you feel like you were prepared for what was that transition like? Were you prepared to go into working life?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. No, so I think that was like the the perk of going to Parsons.
Yeah.
They prepared you very well and it was the best. It was like people from the industry and they got you everything you needed if you wanted to work during school or if you wanted to, it was like, I don't know, photographers teaching. It was
You
agents teaching.
you know how unusual that is. I have never heard. Of all the people and all the stories that I've heard in coming out of college, and I'm not just talking about like photography. I'm saying like in general.
Hmm.
Most of the time, people do not feel prepared for the job that they're actually doing.
Right? No, it was, I don't know. I think Parsons at that time, this was late 90s, was
Yeah.
extremely competitive. I don't know how it is today. Like it was hard to get in and you had to like fight for your space and your place there. So everyone that was there was extremely, extremely dedicated. And, it raised the bar.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
well, and I would also imagine that, like you said, you were probably doing job shadows. You were working with, like, you were doing the things that you would actually do on the job. You had agents coming in to teach classes. You had photographers teaching. I think that's the major disconnect in, at least in my university education. The huge disconnect was that most of the people teaching weren't necessarily doing. So what you were learning
Right.
was great theory, But then as you came out and
Yes.
actually did that thing, it was very different.
Yeah. No, I think it was good. Like for as a reference, there the fashion illustration part of Parsons had like Donna Karan and Tommy Hilfiger as teachers there. So it was
Okay.
obviously a different level.
And is Parsons still around? Is this
Yeah,
okay?
still around.
Because that to me feels like what a university education should be across the board.
Hmm.
Like to, in my mind, the way that a university education should ideally work is you have maybe a professional instructor teacher that builds the lesson material, but it's built off of like essentially real world practices. And then throughout the semester, you have guest speakers who are paid to come in that are augmenting it with, on the ground, this is what we're doing on a day-to-day basis type stuff. So as you come out, you're prepared. And it sounds like that's exactly what they had set up, and it sounds like it's working because they're still in business.
Yep, yep, yep. No, it was a wonderful time, obviously, to, of course, spend my younger years in New York City and be part of this whole, I don't know, the photography culture.
So you come out of Parsons, and what was
Mhm.
your first job?
So my first job during that time, like my last year of school, I started working first for Magnum.
Wait, so Magnum is
Working,
the top photojournalist in the world. Does this
it's
exist
like
right
they're,
now?
yes.
I'm completely clueless as to this. Okay, so tell me, this is the top agency for. You're talking to a
For it,
complete
like,
noob here.
so Google it, my friend. Magnum Photos. So
Can
if
I
you
have?
like all the like famous pictures from, like Afghan Girl, Steve
Yeah,
McCurry,
yeah.
that kind of images are theirs. Like all those photographers belong to Magnum. It's like one of the most prestigious things as a photojournalist to be part of.
Do you
Um,
laugh at people like me who have no like? I've been in the industry for 10 years, and I have no clue what you're talking about right now. Anthony should
yeah,
be pulling it up right now, but his googling skills are apparently not what they are supposed to be.
Well, no, the website was not loading.
The website's not loading, so it's
It's
Magnum's
loading
fault.
now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
so it's like Frank Kappa, like all the old, you
Like
know,
Avedon, or is he was fashion, and would he be
I
listed
think
through
that,
the
that
Magnums?
I don't know yet. I don't know if Andy, if they've licensed his images or whatever, but
Warhol's
there's
in there,
a
yeah.
number of them that are still working, like James Nachtwey or Elliot Irving,
Got
Alex
it.
Webb, like top. Robert Kappa, I said Frank Kappa, sorry, Robert Kappa. Like the old war images.
Got it.
So I was working there and I like got the sense of, just being around photography.
What was
And
that first job there? I mean, that's a
I
pretty
was,
incredible thing to drop into from school.
yeah, definitely. I was working with all their portfolios, making sure that the portfolios were like up to date when they were sending them out for assignments.
How cool is that?
Like this was like in the 90s. You were still working with prints.
Well, I
So
was
I
I
was
was
like,
playing
what?
video games technically, but yes,
Right.
there were people working
I'm
with
old
prints.
pie. Exactly. You like go through the archives and you see all these images of like James Dean and Marilyn Monroe, and it's like all the famous pictures
Wow.
that you've like seen growing up or when your parents were young or whatever. Um,
And at that point, you are now 1 degree separated from these photographers that are. I mean, you're handling their portfolios at this point. That
yeah,
had to be an incredible feeling, like the world is
it
your oyster
was.
kind of a feeling.
Yeah, and it's like you can just touch, it's like what always fascinated me about photography is that it's like a frozen moment in time. It's something
Yeah.
that has actually happened that you have managed to capture that right moment. And you're
Absolutely.
sitting there looking at these prints, and you're like, it's like a piece of history, you know?
Yeah. It's the I truly feel like it's the only medium that can actually take an experience or a memory and make it tangible. Because
Mm.
even when you think of like video, right? Like if you think of cinema, the what makes that tangible is the television or the iPhone or the device that you're viewing. You have to view it on something. And when you do view it on that thing, it's always going to be the screen that you're kind of looking at, and there's kind of a disconnect from that. But with a photograph, you actually take this finite moment, this thing that doesn't really exist in any other form, a memory, and you give it this piece of paper that can have its own kind of tangible qualities to it, and that you can take it around anywhere and show it to anybody with anything. It's a beautiful thing. I'll bet you have to feel a real sense of loss in the way that printing is kind of gone.
Mm, I don't know if I do. Not necessarily. I enjoyed looking at pictures on this now.
Do you?
Yes. But I love collecting images. I have a lot of pictures at home, from different photographers, and I love to see it framed on my wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's,
Don't,
I don't know. Things are evolving. I don't think photography is evolving that much. It's maybe the capture device is evolving,
mm-hmm.
but in the end, it's all about light. It's all about
Yes,
capturing light,
for sure.
regardless if you're shooting with this or if you're shooting with a phase one or if you're shooting with a pinhole camera. It's still
Yeah.
capturing light.
But I find that the experience in viewing it changes dramatically when I have a print in my hand versus a phone or iPad in my hand. Like when I am looking at a print, I'll stay there for a very long time. I mean, long time in comparison, right? You can
Yeah.
hang on a print for 30 seconds easily. You can spend minutes in front of it. Um, but you spend seconds before you swipe on a phone.
Yeah, I guess. I think like the art of printing it's like brings it to a different dimension. It's like an art form in itself to be able to print a really good picture.
For sure.
Um, but and maybe that is lost in a bit, but I enjoy I just enjoy viewing images. I don't really care how. This sounds
Yeah.
terrible, but yes.
I mean, it's a very healthy attitude, especially from the standpoint of like you've seen and been trained in all these forms. I'm frankly kind of surprised that you would have that perspective on it, given the background that you have. But okay, never mind that. Go on to you are now at Magnum. So what is the next step from there? I mean,
So, right. So I started like interning, working there while I was still in school, and got like the whole sense of that. And then I think like my senior year, I started working part time at a photography agency, repping photographers for commercial jobs, and
okay,
that was a completely different experience that I value extremely much. It was Mario Testino's brother who owned it.
oh
If you
wow.
know who Mario Testino is.
I'm not completely incompetent, Sarah. Just partially incompetent.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I'm not claiming you to be incompetent, Pi. You just have a different set of knowledge than I do, maybe.
Oh, I love the way that you Swedes put things.
Yes. No, so then that was like extremely commercially focused in a different way. We were repping a number of photographers, Mario obviously like the star,
Yeah.
but it was all about producing. It could be like a huge campaign being produced for H&M, for instance, or
Walk me through what repping means exactly. What does repping entail?
so it means, I don't know if I'm the right person to explain this, but an agent can have a number of creatives that they
Okay.
are like managing, like a
Sure.
sports manager, or making sure that they get assignments and they get hired for certain jobs and they take a cut. and they do all the, all the hard work trying to find the jobs.
Yeah, finding the clients, communicating with the clients, getting the job, getting the contract, everything up to the actual capture point, right? Everything up to the planning of the shoot. Or is planning involved too?
I think it depends on different agencies. Right now, if you look from back in the days, it was more divided, like you were in photography, or you were in hair and makeup, or you were in cinematic moving images or whatever. And I think now if you look at agents, they encompass all the different medias.
I see.
So it could, in all the different parts of creation. So yeah.
Okay. So
the more people you have underneath you, the more people you can make, and the more money you make.
To me, this is wild. I mean, you went from Parsons to Magnum, the top agency, the top. What was it Magnum referred to? Was it an agency of journalists? What was that?
Yeah, it's like I don't know how they explain them, like how they would describe themselves, but it's like back in the days, it was like a token of it, like the highest you can get in photojournalism, to be acquired by Magnum or to be shooting under their umbrella.
Got it. So, okay.
I think curator.
And then from that point, I'm still trying to figure out kind of, do you know
I'm thinking curator. That's
a curation or like a,
yeah.
Okay. But from that point, then you go to Mario Testino's repping agency. This is insane. Like the career trajectory is nuts.
I just wanted to be around photography.
Well, you did a good job with it.
Yeah. But then at the same time, I was shooting. I was trying to make, I was trying to like build my own freelance business and taking up jobs and setting up my portfolio to everyone, and,
and I assume you were trying to work towards the editorial, fashion, commercial side of the industry then, because that's where all these places that you're leading into.
Yes, like my biggest dream at that point was probably to like shoot a story for Vanity Fair. That was like, that would have been like a sign of success for me at that point.
It's interesting how those signs of success evolve with time. Okay, so you're at Mario Testino's firm, and how long did you stay there?
I don't know, 6 months maybe. I can't remember. I was working there part-time and trying to do my own thing at the same time,
Got it. Okay. So I was going to ask if it was like kind of grueling, but it was part-time work then. It was.
Yeah. It was more, getting the experience and getting some cash for it was nice.
Yeah. So then tell me what it was like then as you're doing that part-time and you're trying to build your own book of business. What was that journey like for you?
I think the benefit was that I was kind of straight out of school and hadn't been hit with reality necessarily.
I like this. I want you to explain what that means. What does that mean?
No, but it's like, as you get older, the more comfortable you get, at that point, when you're in your early 20s, it didn't matter if you were like staying in a dingy apartment with your best buddies and you're eating mac and cheese every day. As long as you had some food and you wasn't going to pass out, and then, you could do your thing.
Yes.
So, yeah. But, it was good. I guess people would say, you're a struggling artist when you're trying to like just get someone to pay for your creative mind to do things, But I was shooting for a few magazines. I did like some just assignments, and I did okay.
So what was that like? I mean, those early jobs, were they paying jobs? What kind of magazines were you shooting for early on?
So I was shooting for like one of the larger publishing houses that had a number of magazines. Like they had like Your Company and People and
Okay. Those are significant magazines.
But just smaller jobs,
Yeah.
on my way to try to get to the big gig, I guess.
What were it's funny because like there's such a difference in terms of the dream versus the reality. And the expectation is often like, you're coming out of school and you've been studying Avedon, you've been studying Mario Testino's work, you've been studying like the dreams. And so there's this kind of expectation that it's going to be some hard work, but I'm going to get there and it's going to be fast. And the reality is dramatically different from that expectation. But these early
I think
gigs,
it's also like, I don't know, this is going to sound so lame, but it's kind of true. Like the journey is the goal in a way.
I just posted a video about that.
Oh, really? No, but it's like looking back in hindsight at that time, 20 something years ago, it was like, I'm gonna make it. Like I'm gonna have my big breakthrough, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking back at it, it's like, I was living the dream back then. Who am I kidding? Yeah.
It's true. It's what I just actually posted in that video, which apparently now, according to your words, is lame.
No.
But it was me and Goalie. We were having this conversation. This was in our very first episode of kind of the destination is becoming a Mario Testino, and we have this like thing in our heads like I want to be an Annie Leibovitz, I want to be a Richard Avedon, I want to be one of these. This is my destination. This is where I'm going, and when I get to that place, I'm going to enjoy life, and when I do this, then I'm going to relax and say, oh, this is awesome. But the funny thing is what you reminisce about the most is the journey. Like when Justin, Chris, and I talk about creating our business, we're not reminiscing over, having a decent income and sitting in a nice house. We're reminiscing about, the times where we budgeted $2 a meal and where we were grinding, and it was us sitting next to each other in a 1-bedroom apartment trying to make this thing work. But we often miss it. We miss it in the moment, looking towards the destination as opposed to realizing that it's the journey that we're going to be remembering most fondly.
Yep. No, but I think it's like important to try to build an everyday life that you're happy with and that you're happy in, that makes you happy. So like the quest of always getting to the next point is not important in that sense, it's not something that you strive for.
But that comes with a little bit of age and wisdom, my friend. And I would venture to bet you probably didn't have that when you were working at Mario Testino's agency and doing your own thing.
And all I wanted was to shoot for Vanity Fair, of course.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're working on your business on the side. Tell me, like, what were the expected budgets at that point? Like when you got these magazine gigs, what were you expecting to take home at the end of the day?
I don't know, a few $100s tops.
Okay. This is good because I want the people that are listening right now to set proper expectations because if you got paid,
that's the kind of money. Yeah. No, it's like I guess, it's so funny when you're looking through Facebook or forums in general, it's like me getting published doesn't pay my rent or my bills, or, it's the money that is paid with that. But it's fun. It's like the same kind of discussions today as it was 30 years ago, probably 50 years ago,
Yeah, it's true. And the funny thing is you could see a photographer who maybe publishes an image of someone famous, George Clooney, Denzel Washington, and it will look from the outside like they have made it.
Mm-hmm.
And what you may not realize is that was an editorial shoot and the pay was $500 if there was any. Like it was just, we need somebody to be here at this time and photographers take on editorial gigs.
And you have 30 seconds to shoot it.
Exactly. So it's kind of a wild difference between the expectation versus the reality in these scenarios. So you're building your book of business. Now, how long did this go for? Like walk me through kind of the next series.
Right. So since I'm not a US citizen, when I don't know how it is today, but then back in the days, when you got your degree and you spent your 4 years to get your degree, you could extend your visa for another year to work.
Okay.
So you got like a work authorization permit for that year. So I stayed for that year. And then I decided to move back home to Sweden. And I think I probably thought that it was going to be easier because I came from doing my own kind of business, but it was very different living in like the hub for photography and moving to Stockholm, where it's like this is small in comparison.
Yeah.
But so I started my own business here as well, and I did shoots here for different companies and magazines and newspapers and whatnot, but I just didn't enjoy it that much anymore. I think like I got the New York City blues.
I see. So after you went back home and you were working and building the business, you were saying that you didn't enjoy that part.
No, I didn't enjoy photography that much anymore. Like it felt like, I don't know.
What do you think was missing as you look back?
I don't know. It was just different. It was a different vibe. Everything was different,
Yeah. Was there a part that had to do with like this dream of making it in New York as a photographer and then being back in Stockholm? Was there a part of that side of it wasn't what you expected?
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was that much of not like it took a conscious decision to move back. I could probably have stayed, and if I could have, prolonged my working authorization, etc. But I'd been gone for 5 years, and I just wanted to come home. Miss my parents.
Yeah.
But it was more. I don't know. Tell you the truth, I just didn't enjoy it as much anymore, and it was probably I was probably struggling. I don't remember the struggling that much. You only remember the good parts.
It's just interesting because I find that these shifts happen a lot, and I'm always very curious as to like what kind of causes the shift of like this. For me, a lot of times those shifts have to do with like realizing pieces of my identity that I didn't know before. But so you're back in Stockholm and you have this shift and you are not enjoying this as much as you used to do. What then?
So what then? So I decided to start. When I'd been home over the during the holidays or the summer breaks or whatever, I had worked part-time at like a Kodak imaging center.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna I need money. I need to work here. So I started working there again when I got back home, just part-time over the weekends, just to get some extra cash or whatever. And when I was there, Kodak was big, not like they are today. It was like not necessarily their heydays, but
they were doing well though.
They were doing well. So they had this business unit called Kodak Professional. And I saw when I was in the store working that they were looking for someone for a year, like a work that was only limited to a year. And it was about getting to know the professional photographers in Sweden and see how Kodak could help them.
Interesting.
So I was like, this is my job.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wanted to be involved, but I did not want to be a photographer. I want to be involved in the business, but not be like the struggling artist kind of a thing.
Sure.
So I applied for that job and I got it. And I went pretty much all over the Nordic countries to see photographers and see how they were using Kodak's products. And, just, it was like a dream job, of course. It was like hanging out with professional photographers, being part of, getting to know them, become friends with them. And like, it was fun. And then maybe 6 months into that job, they asked if I wanted to stay. And I said, yes, I want to stay if I can be part of marketing. So I started working for Kodak's European marketing team with Kodak Professional. So
what year was this in? So
this was early 2000.
Okay.
That was actually 2000. Yeah.
So Kodak was still creating film at that point, although that's when digital was starting to come up, right? So they were kind of starting to see everything eating away at their revenues.
No, but and that's extremely interesting. Like the Kodak story, how they own so many patents for digital.
They owned the first sensor for digital, did they not?
Yeah. Yes. And but instead of like venturing into that, I guess they got blind because they would never think that there would be any competition because they own the entire innovation.
Yeah.
But film, was like 98% margins on. Of course they want to keep film alive because they were making a shitload of money from it. And
interesting. I remember reading this case study.
The beginning of the end.
Yeah. I remember reading this case study. I can't remember where it was, but it's a very famous case study. I think I actually studied it.
It's Harvard.
Yeah, I think
Business
Harvard
Review.
did it. Yep.
Yeah.
But talking about how it's exactly what you said. They held the patents for it, and it was seeing the profitability of film and trying to hold it, as long as possible without putting enough R&D and enough time and effort into developing a digital sensor, and without really. It was a kind of myopic view as to what photography is and where it's going. But it's so crazy because right now, had Kodak actually transitioned into digital, we would probably all own Kodak cameras in terms of that would be our professional camera. They were so far ahead of everybody else. And imagine being able to have a Kodak camera that had Portra and it had every Kodak film built into it.
I know. Isn't that crazy? And I remember my first photokina. Have you ever been to photokina?
I haven't been, but I want to.
Yeah. So my first photokina was the year 2000, and Kodak had like an entire hall. It was huge. And then I came back. I don't know how many years later, maybe 12 years later, and I don't know. It was something shoved in the corner somewhere, like a printing facility or something. I don't know what they were. It's sad. But I remember like going to Rochester in the early 2000s. Rochester, was where their main office was. And Rochester at that time was like Kodak and Bausch, the contact lenses. And I'm sure they employed, 10,000s of people in upstate New York. And I came back a few years later and it was like a ghost town.
It's crazy.
So it is crazy.
It's one thing to see a company kind of go out of business or to get diminished, especially when you consider like all the people that made their livelihoods on it. But it's another thing to see that happen to a company that has such an incredible pedigree. That's an integral part of where an industry is, and to see them come in and then get phased out, and to see other people take over in their stead, because they had such an incredible history and such a wonderful attachment to the entire industry. It's
and not only like the industry, if you everyday like families or whatever, just the fact that you're using the Kodak moment still. I know like the half of the people are using that probably doesn't know what it comes from. Just a way of saying a Kodak moment. But back in the days, with the U.S. national parks, they had like these signs up where there was like a scenic place to take a picture, which said, "Here's your Kodak moment."
That's incredible.
And you can like take. I remember that. There it is. I don't think it's like an Apple moment now. Maybe
an Apple moment. It just doesn't have the same ring to it. Here's your apple moment. I mean, you might as well like bust out a fruit. That's what that means.
Yeah.
You can just pull out your apple and start eating it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're back in Stockholm, you're working this job. You realize, and I'm still very curious just from a psychological standpoint, like what transition made you feel like you wanted to be part of the industry, but you didn't necessarily need that to be from point of capture?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very it's an interesting thing. Like at what point you decided that you wanted to be part of this? You don't kind of remember what it was, the realization or anything like that?
No, I think I already like started to having the thoughts about being involved but not being a photographer already before I moved back home.
Was there anything that clued you in on that you can recall?
All I can think of, like, I was probably not meant to. The idea of me shooting for Vanity Fair was like, I don't think I could handle that kind of pressure, me as a person.
Okay. Well, no, because that's a very important piece that I don't like overlooking, because like a lot of times we see that dream, the destination, and we slowly come to a realization that every step of getting to that place is not in line with necessarily who we are or what we want. And then we realize, okay, I need to retune this destination, basically.
Right. No, but I think it's a very interesting. I had this conversation a couple of years ago with Susan Eli.
Yeah.
And we were driving out to Joshua Tree, and I asked her, I'm like, who are you? And she thought it was a very strange question, I believe, but it turned into a very interesting conversation, because I feel like who I am now is not who I'm going to be in a while, because like we're evolving, and it's like, I don't know, I can't explain it, but it's like all of a sudden you're jumping to a different track and you're continuing your path at a different level.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting, how you don't have to stick with the same dream then all the rest of your life, because it belongs, each thing has its time and its place,
It does. I did probably 6 commercial directing jobs in my career, and up until probably like 6 months or a year ago, like I don't change my profile status that much. I'm not one who's like, oh, I got to make sure everything in every place is like the right me and whatnot. So it was maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, I go onto Facebook and it still says like director, photographer. And I'm like, I haven't directed something in years. And I was looking at that, thinking back to like, at what point did I think I was a director? And so I deleted the title, and I was thinking back to like when I actually did those jobs of like how much I wanted this thing. I wanted to transition from photography into directing, and I wanted to be a director. And then I got a couple gigs. I did a job for Nissan. I did a couple jobs for Toyota, some good directing gigs. And I hated every minute of it. Like it was being on set, dealing with creative directors, multiple creative directors, them telling me what their visions are when I'm hired to execute on a vision that was presented to me by a person that wasn't even there at the shoot. And then trying to marry all of that with the 15 moving parts of having a set. And I was like, this is so far from what I want to be doing. And I remember the Nissan job, they came back and they wanted to contract me to do 6 more. And having the contract in my hands for a significant sum of money, I told Justin and Chris, like, I don't know how we turn this down. And they were like, yeah, you can't turn this down. But then I started getting ulcers. So a week had passed and I started getting stomach ulcers thinking about going and doing this 6 more times. And I came back and told Justin and Chris, I was like, I can't do this. This is not who I am. And I'm feeling physically sick just thinking about the stress of these jobs. And they said, yeah, if that's the case, then we need to back out of it. And they're like, that's a good excuse too. Just tell them that the doctor said you shouldn't be doing this. But that was my dream. My dream was to direct and to do this thing. And then having tried it, I realized that the expectation of what I thought this was versus the reality of it is so dramatically different, and it's not in line with who I am. So I love that question that you asked Susan. Who are you?
It's I asked the same question to myself, over and over again.
Over and over
Because it
again.
changes.
Well, you're out doing a lot of scenic sporting activities, so I imagine you have a lot of time to be introspective.
I know. It's we can come to that part later.
So you're at Kodak now, and you said you worked into a role where you're basically going around and representing Kodak as you meet with all these different photographers and creatives.
And then I started working more on the marketing team for the European marketing team. And then, it started to go south, so to speak, for Kodak.
Revenue-wise, business-wise.
Yes, everything. And, they were reconstructing and reorganizing, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually my business unit, the professional business unit, was no longer there. And we were going to get becoming a part of the consumer business unit, which was more, the point and shoot digital cameras. At that point, digital had started to become more something that everyday people were investing in,
Yeah. What was the general attitude inside the company at that point? Like, what were your coworkers and what was everybody feeling?
I can probably devastation. Of course, a lot of people had worked within the company for many, many years, and just been on that journey where it's like downsizing. So I don't know across the world how much people they laid off during that period of time, but one of my colleagues today used to be my manager actually at Kodak.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Sometimes we talk about, just what a crazy time it was. Yeah.
That has to be a really brutal time from a company morale standpoint. I mean, everybody, you want to see your company growing, but it's downsize after downsize. I have to imagine that the morale was pretty dramatically affected by that.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, layoffs after layoffs in a way, but yeah. So was that eventually.
Okay. So you were laid off and then again left to figure out what to do now.
I know. So then,
who am I?
Yes, then it took a completely different turn. So I was thinking, I have had this, if you're working with your passion, you don't have to work a single day in your life kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So photography had definitely been that for me. And obviously what happened with Kodak was not making it more fun.
Yeah.
To start shooting, etc., even more. So I was ready to take a pause from that completely. And my second big passion in life is horses. So
I was know this about you.
And my father has been breeding horses for many, many years, race horses. And I was I had my own horse and, I was I want to work with horses. So
that's wild.
I decided to send in a spontaneous application to the largest racetrack in Sweden, which is one of the Europe's largest racetracks.
Yeah.
And I got that job. They didn't have a position open. I thought I just sent in an application, but it turns out they had a position open, and I came for an interview, and they're this position that you applied for. And I'm like, I did not apply for the position. I just sent in, an application. So anyways, I got that job, and eventually I became the marketing manager for this racetrack.
Wow. Okay.
And if you think the photography business is a very tight and little group, the racing business is even smaller. It's very much, very, very special people in terms of.
I feel like we're missing a whole bunch of incredible interviewing skills that you have here. Like you have been nailing these jobs since university, and we might need to dedicate part of this episode to just how in the hell you are interviewing to get all these positions despite having no experience. Well, I mean, I guess your father breeds race horses, so, but you had no experience in the racing industry, yet you get this job in marketing. Okay, keep going. Right, I just wanted to point this out.
I had experience in marketing.
Yes.
Yes. No, so I started working there, and eventually, it was fun. It was a great time. But then we had during this time I got married, and eventually we had our first child. So I was on parental leave. Mm-hmm. And then I came back from parental leave, and then, I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. And then I got pregnant again, and I was away on parental leave. And then I decided, this is it. I can't do this anymore. Like, it's eating me from the inside. So I told my hubby, like, here in Sweden, like, the parental leave laws is pretty different than in the US. So you get 480 days of paid parental leave that you can pretty much use how much or how little you want until the kid turns 8.
Wow.
So
okay.
I think actually there's like a law, or like you can't put your child into childcare until they're at least 1 year old.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so we had split our parental leave. So I took 9 months, and he's going to take 9 months. So I told him after our second child, I was like, you will not be able to go on parental leave until I found a new job. Like that's the rule. Because I do not want to go back to the racetrack. I want to do something where I can thrive, and that I want to go back to photography because that's my passion. She's like, okay. Obviously, he wanted to go on parental leave, so it was very much in his interest.
That you find the job that you wanted.
Yes. So this is going to sound ridiculous, but so he's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to go back to photography. He's like, okay, do you want to be a photographer? No, I do not. I want to be involved in photography, but I do not want to be a photographer. It's like, okay, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to work for Profoto.
Interesting.
He's like,
you
why?
knew.
Of course, it's like the industry standard, in New York. That's all it was the gear that we used in school. Every single studio that you came to had Profoto.
Yeah.
So I knew that was a Swedish company, and I knew that they were based in Stockholm. So I was like, I want to work for Profoto. I want to be part of the industry. I want to be like with the top brand in the industry, the premium brand, and that's where I want to be. So it's like, okay. So then like a week later, I was like, okay, maybe I should like see if I can find a job here. Going into like the job listing site.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, who do you think has an ad out?
And
Profoto
you
has
are
an ad.
the expert of interviewing and applying for jobs. So
No, so Profoto had an opening for a marketing coordinator, but the due date had already passed.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm just going to send in an application anyways. So I did. And here I am.
Well, a few years later.
A few years later. It's my 10-year anniversary at Profoto this year.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Well, okay. So along this way, you still have been shooting for yourself too, right? Like I've seen your.
Yeah, I was like taking pictures of my kids, and I was taking pictures of my horse, but not other than that.
I think that still counts. Those are still, like, I've seen
Yes.
your work. Your work is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So you're at Profoto, and have you stayed in that marketing position the entire duration?
No, I have not. I started as a marketing coordinator, and then a year and a half maybe later, it's gonna sound like I'm pregnant all the time, but I was actually pregnant again.
It's going to sound like I'm pregnant. Only because of the amount of time it's taken up in our conversation, but not because of actually being pregnant all the time. You guys have 3 kids, right?
Right. Yes, we have 3 beautiful kids. So I was I was sitting eating lunch with a friend at work, and we were talking about life in general, and he is from New Zealand.
Okay.
And we were talking about New Zealand, and I was asking him, do you want to move back? And he's like, no, I don't want to move back, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you're crazy. Like, I would move back in a heartbeat if I were you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, really? Where do you want to go? And I was like, I wouldn't mind going back to the US. And then that conversation was overheard by our CEO. So he is like, are you serious? Do you really want to go back to the US? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. He's like, okay. And then they'd started talking about opening up a US subsidiary in the US. So after I had our 3rd child, we moved to the US. And my hubby was on parental leave for the majority of the time in his first year and a half. We were just going to stay there for a year to start up the US subsidiary. And when that year was up, the first year, we wanted to stay because it just felt like a year was too short.
Yeah.
The transition and moving over a whole family and starting a new company and getting everything, working. So we ended up staying 6 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize you were in the States that long.
Yeah.
I think I met you for the first time, was it 3 years ago or 4 years ago?
I can't remember, really.
Somewhere around
I don't
there.
know.
But in this time in the industry, because I kind of want to first talk about how the industry itself has evolved, like from point of capture, from the standpoint of working as a professional, and then talk about the changes that you've seen while you've been at Profoto. But the industry's been crazy. I mean, you guys are now working with people who have absolutely no idea, not only about how to develop film, but that, you used to have to go through an agency to get your first jobs and all this kind of stuff. You're working in this social media era where you could just put your work out, grow an audience, and have people come to you.
I know. It's amazing.
It's completely different. So
Yeah.
what are some of the other changes that you've noticed over this time period in photography in terms of like the people that you're working with today?
Say that question again. What?
I'm curious, like the people that you're working with today, how has kind of their career path, how has the career path changed from what you've seen? I kind of want to hear it in your own words.
I don't know, really. I think it's very different. I think it's like we talked about before. I think it's more so the way we photograph that is different, and the way those images are used that is different, rather than how we photograph, or just the fact that social media today requires completely different way of consuming images than it would in a magazine or in print. So I think like that probably goes for the people that are professionals today in the industry. I think a lot of the people that we see, for instance, on TikTok or Instagram, etc., they're only sourcing their income from that platform.
Mm-hmm.
But it requires a specific set of. I think it's very. All right, let me ask you the question. Since you are everywhere in terms of platforms, you have a huge following on TikTok, and then you have your own site, and then you have, Instagram or whatever. Do you feel that there's a difference between how you promote yourself on TikTok versus how you do on your site?
Yeah, for sure. I do feel like I cater to the audience on each platform, but I would say by and large, what I do is not different between the platforms. I've just tuned the message differently for each one. So
right.
I do frameworks and education. So on TikTok, those frameworks and education are designed to speak to an audience that's used to 15 to 30-second videos, as opposed to on YouTube. Those videos are designed to be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, where people have longer attention spans or they're sitting down with a purpose. And same thing with like on a website. But I personally noticed that there's a whole new kind of crop of not just photographer, but content creator who is creating for the express purpose of just creating. Like they don't have an overall purpose or objective. Their objective is just to create things that keep your attention.
Right. But I think that like you are like a jack of all trades when it comes to being able to have a successful following on all the different platforms.
Probably, yeah.
I think the majority of the people that are content creators, for instance, they are focusing on one. They're either like writing and photographing for a very huge blog, or they have a huge following on TikTok. And sometimes there's some sort of crossover between maybe Instagram stories and TikTok, but like it's the way they're shooting and the way they are expressing themselves, for how we are consuming their images are optimized for that platform that they're in.
Sure.
It's, I don't know. You remember when we were in Alaska?
Yep.
And
that was such an eye-opening experience on multiple levels.
I know. With purpose from our side, because we put together the hardcore professional photographers, you and your peers, together with people that
new wave
are
of social media.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just the conversations that were conducted during these days were amazing, because it was such an eye-opener for everyone. I think that even though they are so different and the purpose of the creation is so different, what brought us all together was the light.
Yeah.
Because regardless if you're using, like we started the conversation, regardless if you're using an iPhone or if you're using a DSLR or if you're using $100,000 leaf back, it's all about capturing the light.
Yep, for sure. It's we all have that in common. It was such a unique experience. Like I said, on so many levels. I'd never been to Alaska, so just being to Alaska itself and like seeing Alaska was like Utah on steroids to me. Like I love Utah. I grew up there. We had incredible outdoor scene. But imagining like you take the best of Utah and you just multiply it by 10, and that's all you see everywhere. You can't point your camera and not see something beautiful. Then that first night, I remember the first my first poignant memory from that was the bus ride. I get on the bus and I'm kind of just being my awkward, goofy self, introducing myself to people and saying hello, and there's Brandon Wolfel sitting in front of me. And I'm like, "Hi, what's your name?" And he's like, "I'm Brandon Wolfel." And I'm like, "That's so cool. What do you do, Brandon?" "I take pictures." I'm like, "That's so cool. I do too." And then like I don't know who Brandon is, and I'm kind of to an extent like social media clueless. And all of a sudden, like, one of the girls hops on the bus and she's like, "Are you Brandon Wolfel?" And I was like, "Yeah, that is Brandon Wolfel." And she's like, "I've been following you for ever since you started. You're incredible. Can I get a picture with you?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And so I pull up Brandon's Instagram and I'm like, this guy's got like 3 million people following him. I'm like, how do I not know who Brandon is? And I'm like, "Oh, Brandon, you've done well for yourself." And then meanwhile, I'll get together with JDP, and JDP is one of my favorite people. I met him at Alaska, and like instantly JDP, me and Lee and Patrick were just like together. And we're sitting here completely clueless going, okay, so how does the whole like social media thing work? Do you just like get to 2 million followers and then checks just start coming in? And I was like, JDP, I have no idea. Maybe we can learn a little bit more about this. So Jessica Kobasi's there, Brandon's there. They're all sitting at my table, and I'm the approaching 40-year-old guy that's like just asking weird questions like, so how does it all work? You just you just post pictures and people send you checks? Like, I don't understand.
But I remember this conversation because I think I walked around and I was like eavesdropping, and it's like you asked a question to Brandon, or if it was to Zach Alia.
Yeah.
And you were like, so what is your business? You asked something about the business, and they were like, we just take pictures. Like, it's
It was exactly like that. He was so confused at the question, and I was like,
yeah.
So how does it all work? Like, where does the revenue come from? And he's like, what are you talking about? I get puppies and I take pictures of the puppies. And I'm like, but who pays for the pictures of the puppy? Like, I could not, I came from this from like a business standpoint, and I couldn't wrap my head around exactly what was going on. Did I ever tell you about, so for those listening, Profoto has this contest, and I guarantee it's probably the last time you will ever do a contest like that.
It was amazing though. I wished we had recorded like the conversations and the
Oh my goodness. That
the
would be
feelings
its own
afterwards.
industry viral video. So they put, the Profoto team puts together a really fun contest. It's supposed to be fun, but of course, as photographers, we make it hyper competitive. But you're built into teams, and each of these teams is supposed to, what was it, like 2 hours? You have 2 hours to go and create something with your team. So you have to conceptualize, do the shoot, and you have to use the new product, which at the time it was the B10, which was again, Profoto's had a series of products that just kind of keep raising the bar in terms of what lighting is, and that was one of them. And it's still in my bag. Like, I still use the B10, that original B10. It's my favorite go-to light. So we get our first look at the B10. We're going out to shoot with it, and I'm in a group with Patrick and a couple other people. And Patrick Hall goes, "I brought a spacesuit," and I was like, "Patrick's got a spacesuit, guys. We have to photograph Patrick in a spacesuit." And it was kind of just this really fun thing where you guys had a set of criteria: use the light, shoot an image that kind of represents this light, and going into, you know, the next wave of lighting.
Right, I think it was a theme: unleash your creativity.
Unleash your creativity.
Creativity unleashed, I think, was
That's
like
right.
on the last frontier. That was like the
That's
theme.
right. That's right. And so we finished this thing, and I said to the team, I was like, what if Patrick was holding the B10 and lighting himself in the spacesuit? We have to showcase Alaska because they brought us out here. So if we don't show Alaska, we're failing. We also should showcase the B10, so we need to make sure that logo is present and visible, that we can see what the product is doing. And we're going to have Patrick look at the flash as if he's looking into the future. And it was like a really fun, like, it was kind of a play on it. We were having fun with it, and I don't think anyone on our team was like we're gonna win anything. It was fun.
And there
Hey, you
it
found
is.
the image. Anthony's Google skills comes in
But
handy.
look at the images if you like slide to the right there within that post. Like the images that they're pretty
This was an incredible
badass.
shot.
I know. And everyone had 2 hours to do this, you know?
Yep. They were all really beautiful images. So we go to dinner, and the Profoto team has a chance to review the images and to figure out who the winning team is. And we're all sitting there joking around, like we'd seen everybody else's images, and we're going, there's no way we've won this. There is not a chance in the world that we have won this, especially with the images that have been submitted by, Ben Chrisman's team and Sal Sincata's team and Brandon Wolfel's team and everybody that's gone together on this thing. And who was it that stood up and started talking about the image?
I think it was David Bishu.
Yeah, it was David.
Yeah. Because he was like, yeah, I was like, you are the judge in this, because I can't stand there and talk about who won.
And David stands up and he goes, the image we have selected, and he waxes super poetic about this thing. It was almost word for word what we had described in terms of like looking to the future and a vision of, this. But we're sitting here going, we shot Patrick in a spacesuit. Like there's no way he's talking about our image. And he's talking about that this image represents the future of where lighting is going and how we're stepping into a new frontier, and it's visionary. And we're like, Brandon's team definitely won this. They have definitely won. And then David goes, the winning team is team number 5. And I kid you not, Michael Anthony was recording a video. And we're all sitting there at team 5 table. And I turned to Patrick and I go, what number are we? Aren't we team number 5? And Patrick's like, I think we are team number 5. And I pick up the card on the table and I was like, guys, we're team 5. Like the fact that he said team 5, I knew we were team 5, but I was so confused because I just knew that we did not get this thing. So we end up winning, and our team is like jumping up and down like, oh my gosh, we were just having fun. We're playing around. We can't believe and everybody else is furious. I mean, we have.
Then it started.
Then it really started.
Yes.
I felt like up until that point, I spent all this time trying to build relationships with these people. At that point, when we won, those efforts were just trashed. Gone.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how quickly it can go south?
Went south so fast. And the other funny part was like none of the other photographers had any problem telling us how bad our image was. I was like, they kept coming up to me. They're like, I can't believe you won with that shit. And I was like, I know.
It's a great image, though. It is a great image. Even though Patrick is standing in a spacesuit.
It's Patrick in a spacesuit. And I specifically remember walking over to Zach Alia's table, and all of his table just looked at me like, why are you even here right now? And I was like kind of smiling and like joking. I'm like, it's all fun, guys. And Zach's like, that was garbage. He's like, that image was garbage. I'm like, I know, Zach. I know it was. And Zach said this. He goes, if I posted that photograph to my Instagram, I would lose followers. And I was like, yeah, but we won.
Did you feel like it stabbed your heart?
No, I honestly, like, I am no novice when it comes to being critiqued. Like I get critiqued nonstop. My YouTube comments are more brutal than anything that these guys can say. And I've been dealing with that for years. So I'm having a good time with it. Patrick's having a good time with it. I think our team was genuinely concerned because most of the other creatives like have never upset anybody before. So
I think we all saw a different side of everyone that we knew.
Yes.
But it was fun though. It was fun. But the competitiveness, like I've never ever witnessed competitiveness to that extent ever.
Oh my goodness. And eventually, I felt like it took a good 24 hours. Eventually, everybody started kind of laughing along with it like we did. And they were like, this is pretty funny. It's a great story. It was a hilarious experience. And I was at Zach's table. I was like, yeah, but we won. And do you know why we won, Zach? Because we designed the image for the audience. It was Profoto who brought us to Alaska, so we featured their product. They wanted something that talked about the future, so we put Patrick in a spacesuit and we showcased the scenery.
You did good.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm happy that it brings back good memories for you.
Incredible memories. And it was, again, walking away from that experience was a time where, like, all of us that had this experience of going through, you know, some of us had come from film, others had went digital, but we knew what it was to market either through to an agency, to go through build your portfolio, to go through and find clients, to do that whole side, the business aspect. We met a completely new audience, a completely new professional, I should say, a professional who built an audience with a great product. Like they designed imagery that was beautiful. They built this significant audience, and their clients came to them. And it was the first time that we realized, like, there's now more than one way of entering the industry. And it was a very fascinating realization to come to.
Yeah. No, it's I think that has probably been the most major change in the business, at least in like the last 30 years that I've been involved somehow. The way that new platforms have evolved photography, or not evolved photography, but evolved the way images are consumed and the way you present yourself.
For sure. Because from a brand standpoint, I mean, if I put myself in any brand shoes, I would have to say, if I can hire a creative and at the same time have a built-in audience as well as somebody who can craft stories and market, then this is more powerful than simply hiring a photographer. So it's almost like the role of photography. Back when we had that film to digital transition, the role of photography became, okay, now you have to shoot, but then you also have to develop. So post-processing was rolled into your job as a photographer. And then as social media and this thing has come about, now marketing has been built into your role as a photographer. You are now a marketer.
So do you feel Pi Jirsa as Lynn and Jirsa wedding photographers, do you feel that what they're asking of you in what your clients are asking of you, has that changed?
What our clients are asking of us, not really. I don't feel like that side has changed from the wedding side.
Do they don't want anything else? Do they want like social media cuts? Do they want video? Are you supposed to serve them with everything like that, or is it more like this is the package you're buying into and it's X amount of images and it's like an album and a print, or like how does that work?
I think by and large the product hasn't really changed. Like they're not asking for, you know, social media deliverables and all that kind of stuff. But what has been interesting is that our brand and their time on the blog and their time in our social media channels has become an expectation of the product. Like we have actually had clients get let down when they don't see their images hit the blog or they don't see their images on social media. And we're like, oh no, it's just because we've gotten a little bit behind in terms of like posting, but it's coming up. So we've had people notice that kind of stuff. And we thought this really isn't our product, but it's kind of part of this. We want to be featured, you know, on the Lynn and Jirsa website. Like we want our wedding and our everything that we've done to be featured on there. And we're like, this is unusual.
It's their sign of success.
In a way, they kind of see that as like a bragging right? So
right.
I'll go out on client shoots now, and we don't have a ton of them due to COVID and whatnot. But on my client shoots, they'll say things like, "Do we get to be on your TikTok?" And I'm like, "Okay, like let's do a quick TikTok video." And they're like, "Yeah, this is awesome." And when I post it, they like rave about it. Like, we hit Pi Jerse's TikTok and his Instagram, and I'm like, this is so strange. But it's not part of the the deliverable in a way. It's just kind of this expectation now.
Everything is just the way. I think it feels like we just have like scratched the surface of what to come, and everything goes so quickly now.
Yeah, the biggest change that I've seen in recent years is I see, and I don't want to bash on it. I don't want it to sound like I'm bashing on it, because I feel like to each their own type thing. I have a very specific, like, I want the images that I create, even from an educational standpoint, I want the images that I create to mean something. If I can create images of my children, it means something to me. If I can create images for clients, I would rather do that than bring in a model where I'm just creating images that really don't have any purpose or use after the fact. Granted, just because of like logistics, I often have to, like, I can't line things up where I can always work with clients or those things for education. So I do some with models. But I'm noticing that like there's a complete shift now. And there's a lot of photographers that are creating images that their only purpose is just to be pleasing to look at. That's it. Like it's only designed to catch somebody's attention online or on social media or on something. It has no other function beyond that. And that's new. And I don't know really how I feel about it, other than just to each their own type thing. But have you noticed this as well? Like,
yeah, yes, I guess I have. I haven't really like thought about it that much. I think with the new social media platforms, imagery in general has been more what do you say, like it's there for everyone to enjoy in a completely different way. So probably a lot of the images are probably there just to please, rather than making
kitty cat.
Other than just being meaningful. I don't know. Isn't that meaningful enough to please?
Just to be pleasing to look at. I mean, earlier we talked about like where are the Richard Avedons and the Leibovitzes of our generation. And I personally feel like that is the missing piece. Like from the way that we capture and the way that we document, technology is going to shift and change those things a little bit as we go through. But to me, the missing piece is the sense of value and purpose and aim at what a photograph is supposed to be.
Right. What do you think is the most, which one is your favorite image? Not that you have taken, but do you have like one image that is yours that you would wish that you had on your wall, unless you already have it on your wall?
Well, I have images that are like seared into my mind, but they're not necessarily ones that I would want on the wall. So
like what?
Like there's a lot of wartime images, photojournalist images that like have told stories that we wouldn't have been able to know otherwise, that have put you in a place where you see things that you would never have seen. I think the Afghan girl was one of those. I believe she was an Afghan girl. There's a super famous image. I forgot who captured it, but it was during the, I believe, Vietnam War.
Napalm Girl.
There was one with there was the tanks image, as well as an image with a man being shot, and he was tied up.
Oh yeah.
Shot. Those are images that I feel like
Eddie Adams took that one.
Eddie Adams took that one. To me, are the ultimate expression of like what a photograph can be in terms of changing world dynamics of
Mm-hmm.
They allow people on one side of the world to be able to see what's happening on the other side of the world. And I think those types of photographs are the highest level of what a photograph can be in changing.
Yes, I
creating
agree with you.
change.
And I also like want to like they bring a responsibility to the viewers to never let anything like this happen again, to
Absolutely.
never let history repeat itself. But once a year there's this amazing workshop called the Eddie Adams Workshop that's in upstate New York on Eddie Adams' farm. But Eddie passed away a few years ago, and he started to 100 students from all over the world are invited to come, and you can apply to be part of this. And Nick Ut, who took Napalm Girl, is there as a teacher, for instance. And there are editors from National Geographic and New York Times and Sports Illustrated to give you assignments to shoot during these days.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. Cliff is very much involved in this whole thing because he was Chris, he was a personal friend, a very good friend of Eddie Adams. Did you know that Cliff's dad was a very famous photographer from New York Times?
I did know that. Yeah, Cliff told me that in Alaska.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. There are a lot of these moments in time that has been a very defining point in history.
Yeah. So that to me is I guess what I would say is the ultimate expression of the most value that a photograph can bring to a person or the world as a piece of value, and kind of what it can do. Then you have everything in between. And at the bottom of that, I would place images created solely for social media and just being pleasing to look at. And somewhere in between there, I would say, is wedding photography, where the images that you're creating have a sense of meaning and purpose to the people that are within them, and the people that know the bride, the groom, and their families and that kind of stuff. You're creating for the family, and I would put anything in the general genre of portraiture within that arena. But yeah, I see those kind of
portraiture for personal use.
Yeah, I would say portraiture for personal use, and then you have say editorial portraiture, which to me still, I understand that it's cool to see a nice picture of George Clooney, but I don't necessarily know what value that brings in the sense of other than those people being celebrities. I think the image plays less of a part in editorial work, in terms of meaning and value, than the person's accomplishments, the actual article itself. The article itself feels like that's what the value is, and the image is just a supplement to basically, put a face to the name or put context to something.
Okay. I don't agree with you.
Yeah, tell me your thoughts on it, because from my perspective,
but if it's I'd rather look at the images than read the story behind it, And to me, it's I don't really care who's on the image necessarily, if it's a good photograph.
Interesting. But let's say, okay, so you have shown me some. Do you have your portfolio online right now? Can Anthony actually pull it up? No, dang it, Sarah.
I don't know, Instagram.
Okay, well, Anthony,
you can find some of my images on Instagram. It's my name backwards.
So some of the images that you have of your children and the images that you create are absolutely incredible, and I can get lost in those in the same exact way that I can get lost in a celebrity portrait. And if you ask me, the image of your children has far more meaning. Because
for me, yes.
For you, but the only reason that a celebrity's photograph has meaning is because it's a celebrity. Or it's somebody like Elon Musk, were he any other person, if he was just the average person, what would anyone care about that photograph?
I think it depends how that photograph is. What kind of photo? If it's a good portrait, I don't care if it's Elon Musk or George Clooney on it, or some random kid on the street.
Well, that's why I put portraiture all into this one sphere, because I personally, and maybe this is why I am a portrait photographer of family and weddings and that kind of stuff. Maybe this is the piece of my own value. But while it's interesting to me to see those images of a celebrity, it doesn't give me any more or less value in looking at the photograph than, something else.
Right. No, maybe it's because, I don't know to what regards that celebrity portraiture is more valuable than anything else. To me, I think it's more about, like, I can spend a lot of time just looking at a photograph. Like, what makes this special? Why do if I flip a magazine and all of a sudden why do I stop and look at this image? What is it that draws my attention? What does it convey? Is it the lighting? What would I have done differently? But I'm obsessed with photography. I think maybe if I ask my husband, he would be like, okay, why do you want this on the wall?
I found the Instagram. Tell me if I got this right.
Let's see it. Yes, that is it.
Yes, that's me. It's a lot of pictures of me skiing, obviously.
I know we gotta talk about your incredible outdoors life. I remember the picture of the hand with the watch is beautiful. I remember you showing me some children, some pictures of your kids.
Yeah, and probably if you scroll down a bit.
Scroll down a little bit more. Like that shot of oh, I love these. Look at your daughter in the field. Click on any of those, Anthony. Oh, look at these ones.
These ones?
Yeah, your boy with his long hair. Yep. Like, these to me are incredible. And it's incredible. Like, this is to me far more meaningful on many levels than an editorial portrait, because, and that's the hard thing that I see in editorial portraiture. I commented on this. But Anthony, you can flip through a few of these, but your work is beautiful. And when I look at that, if I saw an editorial portrait of an Elon Musk or any of these famous people for whatever it is, what I'm really looking at is a picture of a person who has a list of accomplishments, right? And the accomplishments, the article, the backbone of that image, to me, adds a lot of value to the photograph itself. But when I look at your photographs of your children, when I look at these photographs of the people in India, that to me means far more. It means more to me as a human being. It means more to me as a parent looking at you, documenting your children's lives and their growth. And then I add to that fact that I actually know you. And so there's additional value there. But I don't like how photographers, and again, this is from my own set of values, I don't like how photographers place editorial portraits at a higher value than other portraits.
No, I guess, right. I think it's like we talked about in the beginning, like maybe it's a sign of success.
That's what it feels like. For the photographers who often shoot those images, it almost feels like a trading card. Like, like Pokemon, got to capture them all type thing. Like, got to collect them all.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's, yeah. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it that way. I just, to me, it's just either it's a good photograph or it's not a good photograph.
Interesting. Well, you are an incredible photographer, my friend. So,
thank you. Thank you.
Hope and wish that you continue to put out your work into the world. Now, I know Zeke wants to play Xbox probably.
It's fine. He's doing something else now.
He's doing something else now.
Yes.
So maybe for a moment, why do you think, I mean, can you think of anybody in the past 10, 20 years that is approaching the status of an Avedon or a Leibovitz or any of these very famous Eddie Adams?
Yes, there are. I think in our, it's just interesting. Like Annie, for instance, if you ask a random person on the street, like name a famous photographer, 9 out of 10, if they can mention anyone, name
We'll say
anyone,
Annie.
it would be Annie.
For
They
sure.
would say Annie. And Annie is so unique in a way that she's been like a top of the world for so many years, and
Yeah.
she's taken so many images that are really iconic.
For sure.
And it's just interesting, you know, you can flip through a magazine or whatever and you can spot right away that that's an Annie image if it doesn't
Yeah.
say her name. And someone that is like, I don't know who's going to be like the next Annie. I don't think, maybe there won't be a next Annie, of course, like just like there's not a next Avedon or a next Irving Penn or, you know, but I think there are a few people that are, in my regards, are like good successors, or
Yeah.
that I might think. Should I mention who I think?
Yes. Let's hear it.
I think Joey L is
Joey
one
L
of
is
the
awesome.
one of the one, like there's so many ones that I just love and adore within the industry that I consider friends as well, but that can reach like that kind of, I don't know. You can walk on the street and name can someone say who this, like name a photographer? Joey L, I think, definitely. I think Lindsay Adler
Lindsay's incredible.
She's amazing, the way she portrays women in general, you know, like extremely, I don't know. It's just something that touches me with every single one of her images.
Yeah, her images are powerful. Very much they convey strength from both the point of capture and the subject itself.
But there's so many good photographers out there that are just, I don't know, that speaks to me with their images.
I wonder if both of the people that you mentioned are of the caliber that would be an Annie Leibovitz, and in many ways are probably superior technically in their craft. I almost wonder if this is more of a function of the way media operates today, though. Because Annie Leibovitz and Avedon and all those people, they became those names that are more recognizable simply because everybody was tuned into the same platforms back then. I mean, you had radio, you had television, and really most everybody was in television. So if you actually got a show, if you actually were in somewhere, you know, but those that are on, even the photographers that are on television today, they're garnering such a small percentage of an audience that would have been watching them 20 years ago. You look at Nigel Barker, you know, he's been on TV for a long time. And yet if you were to ask, like, can you name a famous photographer? Most people probably wouldn't come up with Nigel first, because the audiences feel like they're so broken up and spaced out compared to the way that they used to be.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the people that has one of the largest platforms and the largest voices at the moment is ex-White House photographer. What is his name? Do you remember his name? Always blanks on me. He was the one that was Barack Obama's photographer, and he's been a White House photographer. Pete Sousa.
Pete Sousa.
I feel like he has probably one of the most significant names currently.
Yes.
And even then, his name doesn't roll off my tongue clearly as easily as a Leibovitz or an Avedon or anything. So it feels like it's a huge part to do with just like the way that our minds are split. Because in every way, like Leibovitz is an incredible photographer, and her subjects and her work is and not to take anything away from that. But if you were to ask me, like, whose work do you appreciate more? I would put Joey L. and Lindsay Adler's work above hers. But they don't have the name.
Yet.
They have 20 years, 30 years to catch up.
Yeah, but it's just interesting how it's like, I don't know, that it's kind of like the same household names. You know, you have the Mario Testino and David LaChapelle and Bruce Weber and
the Pygiersses.
Ellen von Unwerth and the Pygiersses, of course. Of course.
Don't worry, my friend. I am under no delusions.
Oh no. No, I don't know. It's or you know, Nick, who shot the Napalm Girl.
Yeah.
It's these images that, I don't know, they touch you.
For sure. I would say the photojournalist ones. I'm honestly speaking that your photographs of your children are more. They touch me deeper than like any of the other big names that you're talking about. And it's simply because
Thank you.
That photograph of your, is that Zeke in that shot with his hair?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know exactly the story that you're telling. I mean, the way that you have focused in on the detail of his hair and kind of how long his hair was, and like, you know, he's looking down in the photograph and the way that it's lit, it feels like this kind of passing of time photograph of documenting him at this moment and in this stage. And as a parent, I know exactly what you're speaking. I'm not connected to a photograph of Queen Latifah in a crazy dress, you know, like it's cool. Like, you know, right. You put the royal couple in a shot. It's cool. It's interesting. Great. That's great that you got to photograph the royal couple, but in no way does that have value to my own life.
No, but I think like going back to my story or whatever we're going to call it, but like after I had children was when I found a meaning to start shooting again.
Yeah.
And today it's basically all I take picture. If I should take like a photograph using something else than my iPhone, it would be because I've taken pictures of my kids.
Yeah.
For a specific like I see something in my head and I have to do it, you know?
I love that. Well, this is between your crazy adventures. I don't know that our audience knows, but in spite of, I mean, not in spite, you are this powerful force behind Profoto, and you know pretty much everyone in this industry. You are in and of yourself very accomplished as a photographer, very skilled as a photographer, and you're also quite skilled as an athlete.
Athlete, that was funny. I don't know, but thank you.
Whatever.
I don't agree with you as a skilled as an athlete.
I mean, your photography skills might be slightly better than your athletic skills, but
I think
you do impressive
athletic
things.
Ambition. Oh, do I? Thank you.
I mean, you have a CrossFit gym in your garage.
Yes, I do.
So what is your favorite thing right now in terms of sports?
Right now, cross-country skiing.
Okay. That's why I've been seeing a lot of cross-country skiing on you.
Yes.
That's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's quite hard, actually. I realize my balance is not very good.
Yeah.
No, but it's like, I don't know. I have to be outside. It's like I go crazy if I don't get to spend time outside. So at like 8:00 at night, and you know, I'm in Sweden now. It's pitch dark here. I go out skiing on the golf course where I live. And it's just me and the wolves.
Outside
we
of
don't
the
have
wolves, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, well, we don't have wolves, but wild boars we have.
How long are you skiing for usually? How many miles do you go for these?
I don't know. I'm out an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Hour, hour and a half. I'm going to Utah actually in a week. For the first time actually in almost 20 years, I went skiing. I grew up skiing, so that's all I did when I was young, and probably till the age 20. But my dream was to be a professional skier, and so I did cross country skiing as well when I was younger. Very difficult, not
It
easy
is
to do. But my first time back was 2 weeks ago. In
on
20 years.
cross
Alpine.
country skiing or alpine.
Alpine
Oh,
skiing. Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
But in
It's fun.
next week, I'm going to go back to Utah and I'm doing a little reminiscing ski trip with one of my high school buddies.
Ooh, that's fun. So I used to love skiing, alpine skiing, and I went to this on this trip to the French Alps with a photographer called Felix Saint Renard. He's like
Okay.
he was like the first ski photographer out there, and it started like a ski magazine and whatnot. So he invited me and some other people to ski with him, and I realized that my ability to ski was not up to par with his ambitions. So after that, I didn't ski for maybe 10 years at all.
Oh,
I know, it was terrible. I was at one point, I was trying to break my ski so a helicopter would come and get me.
no.
But yeah, I'm slowly picking it up again because I want my kids to ski
Yeah, skiing is so much fun.
if they enjoy it. Yeah.
Well, my
So
friend,
that's fun.
I appreciate you taking the time to come on here. I know you said
Absolutely.
you don't know what we would talk about for so long, but I find you fascinating.
Oh, thank you. I find you fascinating.
No. But is there any clue or hint that you can give us in terms of what's coming at Profoto or what people should be on the lookout for?
Ooh, time will soon tell.
So in the meantime, should we just direct them to the Instagram? Where is the best place? Let's
Yeah, either Profoto Global or Profoto.com.
Profoto.com.
Yeah, keep an eye out. And I think it's like what we talked about at some point during these 2 hours, light is the only constant.
It's true.
It's interesting, how because we had a discussion about it today at work, like how photography or the device has changed over the years. But what it's all about is really how to capture light.
That's true.
And it's interesting. Yeah.
The only thing that stayed consistent, light and the story that you're telling.
Yeah. No, and I think like for us at Profoto, it's always driving the innovation towards that.
Yeah.
Making sure that there are easier and more valuable ways, or not valuable ways, but ways for you as a photographer to find value in. And then, pairing that with education and making sure that we are staying ahead.
Well, the products that you guys make are incredible. I've been a fan of Profoto products as long as I've been a photographer, and I've been fortunate enough to be an ambassador of light for the last several years, which is fantastic because there is tons of great gear that I always want to try out, and now I get the opportunity to do so. But
can I just ask you a question? I know that
Yes.
we should wrap this up, but like,
no, we have time. If you have time, we have time.
Why have you always been a fan of Profoto products? What makes it
I think when
unique
So when I first came into the industry, it's what you talked about, where it's like you see Profoto being used by everybody, every studio, every place. It's kind of the standard in lighting gear. When I got my hands on it for the first time, I became a fan of it for a completely different reason. It was just, it works. Like it's easy to use. It works. You don't have to come into it being like a lighting expert. You come into it with an intuitive understanding of what you're trying to do, and then you just push buttons and you get it to go. And that was so dramatically different. Like I remember when I picked up an Einstein flash for my first time, you know, I was like, what the hell is this remote? Like what is this? Am I trying to operate like a spaceship right now? Because that is how the remote is designed. And I had to have someone sit down with me and walk through it, and then it would have issues. And then coming from the world of now there's an entire generation who has no clue what a pocket wizard is. But going from just troubleshooting the pocket wizard down to figuring out why is the flash not working, and then all of a sudden pocket wizards are out of the pictures and you have radios built into the flashes. Well, now why don't those radios work? And I'm out on location, I'm shooting, and I have clients on the other side of my camera and I can't get my flash to fire. And this is embarrassing and it's awkward, and I have to sit here and fill the dead space with conversation as I go and troubleshoot these stupid flashes that are supposed to have built-in radios that work. I remember Canon built radios into their flashes, and I'm like, this is Canon, and they're not working correctly. So I came into it from that side where I had all these really bad experiences with flash, and then suddenly stepping into Profoto and being like, it works every time. It's no longer even a concern. It's no longer. So then I became a fan on a different level. It was like, now it was on the level of, this is a tool that makes my life far easier. And I get that the only complaint people can ever make about Profoto equipment is that it's expensive. That was a good stutter. But I'm sitting here going, there's a lot of things that you pay for that are expensive because you value the experience more than the thing that's cheap. So it's really became about that. Like what kind of experience do you want to have? And for me, being out and photographing, the last thing that I want to do is worry about gear. So I invest in gear that I don't have to worry about. And so it kind of changed from, this aspirational sort of thing to, okay, now it's reliability and it works.
So if you had your wish stick, what would the next Profoto piece of equipment be that we released?
I don't know that. So everything that Profoto is doing is, to me, it's exactly where I would want things to go. Like when the B10 came out, I was sitting here going, beautiful. This is exactly what I've been wanting, because we were using the B2, which had the external battery pack, and you had to kind of still finagle that whole thing. So it was perfection. The only ask that I have, which I've talked to the engineers about for quite a while, is on the remotes being able to see the power settings of the different flashes.
Right.
But beyond that, I'm kind of like, anything that Profoto does, I'm pretty sure is going to be where the industry is going or where we want it to be going. I feel like you have a really good bead. The entire engineering team has a really good bead on what's next and what we want.
Yes, they are good. You should come to Stockholm and visit sometime. Then
I'm waiting for the next invitation.
Come and yes,
I'm not going to miss it again.
Exactly. Visit the R&D team and everything, and we can pick your brain and you can pick theirs.
I am available.
Yes. No, but it's like the user, the customer value and everything we do is super important.
Yeah.
To make sure that you as a user find value in whatever it is that we're releasing and producing. So yes.
It feels like there's a good amount of empathy. Like I feel like a good product design team has to empathize with the person that's using the product. It always feels like there's a very good understanding, an empathetic understanding of what we need. So yeah. Even when it came to the C1, I felt like most everything that I was saying to the team, because I remember working with the engineering team on that, and everything I was saying, they were saying, yeah, we know, and we're gonna build those things in. I don't think I offered anything unique. So
cool, awesome.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise, my friend, likewise. And I miss you very much.
Ditto. We need to. If you are not coming out here, then please let me know when the next thing that we can come out there. And I still regret missing the last one.
Yeah, it'll be more. It'll be more opportunities along the way. Just letting this pandemic settle. You know, the world is on fire, and we need to slowly get back to how it was.
Most
hopefully.
definitely. Well, I hope to see you soon. And in the meantime, if you are watching or listening, check out profoto.com. We will link everything up in the description of the video. So everything we discussed, including Sarah's work, you guys can check out her personal work as well. And maybe you can send her messages like I do to post more of it and to pick up her camera more often.
I will try.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.